Tesla stock had a beautiful bounce up today, and this is actually in sync with what I've been telling the Push and Profit private group. For example, last night I sent a long message to members of the Push and Profit private group, but I want to share with you guys a snippet of what I said. So yesterday at 11:18 p.m. I said, in tonight's briefing, we'll start by examining the S&P 500, which closed above our watch list target of 4,335. This bullish activity is partly attributed to a recent dip in interest rates. Concurrently, we're observing a minor decline in the US dollar, leading me to think that it may be nearing its peak and can undergo a more substantial downturn shortly. Furthermore, volatility in oil prices is being influenced by the current unrest in Gaza, Israel. At present, conditions seem ripe for a potential temporary market bottom. Though there's no such thing as a guarantee in the financial markets, I remain optimistic that we've hit short-term lows, a development many of us have been awaiting. As for my outlook, I've grown increasingly convinced that we can expect to see the market bottom materialize in October. Now again, that was just a snippet of what I told the Push and Profit private group. It actually goes on further and much more longer than that, but I just wanted to give you guys a preview or kind of idea of what I tell the Push and Profit private group. And so we talked about some price levels with Tesla, and we saw that today Tesla had a nice push upwards. But this wasn't just Tesla and Silo, as we saw the overall S&P 500 also aggressively push upwards today. Now this is partly due to the fact that we had the Federal Reserve Atlanta President Bostic say that rates are now high enough to lower inflation to 2%. He also says that he sees no need to raise rates anymore, and then also goes on to say that inflation has improved but still has a long way to go. Now when we take a look at what the futures markets are pricing in terms of the probability of a rate hike for November 1st by the Federal Reserve, we see that it has contracted down to just 11.6%. Just yesterday this was at 30%. So this shows that the market's more confident that the feds are no longer going to hike in November's meeting. Now this is something I've not only told members of the Push and Profit private group, but I also have said this publicly on YouTube if you guys have been watching my channel, that I am pretty positive that the feds are not going to hike. In fact, it's not really needed, as there is often a lag in terms of what happens to the economy when you have an update in monetary policy. It takes time to actually feel its true effect. Along with that, we also had some good news with Dojo, as we got this article saying that at Tesla's headquarters in Austin, Texas, a new bunker-like structure is under construction that could one day help move the company beyond electric vehicle manufacturing. When it's completed, the building will house part of its new supercomputer known as Dojo that Tesla is assembling to help run the artificial intelligence software behind the self-driving capabilities in its vehicles, according to two people familiar with the project. And eventually Tesla could use Dojo to sell cloud-like services to other companies the way Amazon Web Services does. And so this was just a mini positive update on the supercomputer Dojo for Tesla, and this is one of the reasons why just a couple of weeks ago we saw Tesla stock actually push upwards once we had one of the analysts from Wall Street say, hold on, wait a minute, we have to stop looking at Tesla as just a car company and really look at it far beyond that as a tech company. And so this is actually a really good development with Tesla. But to make news even better, we also have this article come out saying that Tesla base models are now cheaper than the average new car in the United States. Now we'll go ahead and talk about that further in this video, but I want to highlight the fact that one of the things that we're seeing is everything's pretty much lined up for a bit of a relief for October. Now I've told members of the Push and Profit private group in yesterday's long message in our daily briefings that I see this as a temporary move, that underlying in the economy there's still a lot of problems, and I don't think that we're necessarily going to go into all-time highs, but we typically or historically see this bottoming in October, and this October is no different. It's pretty much another Uptober, as I like to call it. Now, taking a look at the 10-year Treasury, we are seeing it pretty much fall down a bit. And again, this is really good for the markets because it kind of eliminates that risk equity premium, because when the 10-year Treasury is up, it takes away the appetite to hold capital in the stock market. And so basically, When this goes down, well, this puts the appetite back for stocks to be long again. Now, of course, further on in this video, I want to go ahead and hop into my laptop and really just talk about some price levels that we absolutely want to be aware of in regards to Tesla stock and some things, again, with the overall market. But I want us to pay attention to what we see coming in for tomorrow. See, tomorrow lies a big day ahead of us where we have a lot of data coming out. We have a ton of Fed speakers speaking tomorrow. Again, we have President Bostic speaking again, Waller, we have Collins, a lot of Fed speakers. Now, the main data point that is going to have a pretty much impact on the overall markets is going to be the producer price index, as this is a leading indicator for inflation, because if producers are paying more, well, that means that consumers may the prices may get passed on to consumers. And so if we see things looking good for the producer price index, well, this could be pretty much good for the overall markets. And then the day after, we have the CPI report, which is the consumer price index, which of course by now you guys know is an inflationary gauge. And if we see this come off cooler, then the chances of the Fed's hiking for November are most likely going to continue going down, and this is going to be really bullish for the overall markets. But I do want to provide a quick reminder that this isn't the last inflationary gauge that we get before the Federal Reserve makes their decision. In fact, on October 27th, we get the PCE prices, which is an inflationary gauge that is measured differently that the Fed's actually prefer to look at in regards to this comparison between the CPI and the PCE. But so far, things are temporarily looking pretty good for this October that I've been talking about, again, not only with the Push and Profit private group, but publicly on this YouTube channel. By the way, if you guys want access to the Push and Profit private group, where every single day the markets are open, I share a daily briefing talking about things that we have to be aware of, as well as trade ideas that I share talking about what are good areas to enter and what stocks I'm looking at. Make sure to check out the first link in the description of this video, but let's go ahead and hop into my laptop. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at Tesla stock. Now, before we go ahead and dive into the charts and looking at Tesla from a technical perspective, I want to just quickly pan over back to this article that I shared earlier in this video, how Tesla base models are now cheaper than the average new car in the US, as there's something notable that's mentioned in here, right? So it says that electric vehicles have gone down in price and inflation has greatly increased the average new car sales price in the US. Now, this makes sense because, of course, we've seen lots of price cuts on these Teslas. But it also goes ahead and says that on top of that, U.S. car buyers' affection for bigger vehicles like SUVs and pickup trucks has contributed to boosting the average for new car sales prices. Now, this is somewhat interesting because in the past we talked about how historically pickup or lightweight trucks like pickup trucks are favored among many of Americans, and how Tesla adding the Cybertruck to its product line is definitely huge, as it's going to have this whole new market to capitalize on. But it's interesting to see that it says that it has contributed to boosting the average, meaning that the average is now increasing because more Americans are looking to buy pickup trucks. And I mean, this includes myself. I'm someone who never in a million years, 5 years ago, if you asked me if I wanted a pickup truck, I'd say yes. Back then I used to think they were hideous, ugly. But now, I mean, it's just, I mean, anyone who already has a pickup truck already knows the utility in them. I think if you're trying to make some extra cash, you should invest in a pickup truck. And I'm not saying this because I want people to buy Cybertrucks. I'm honestly just saying because there's been many times, right? Just so many times where I drive along the road and there's appliances that look like they're in great condition where you could either scrap it for the metal or you could just refurnish it and sell it, but you really can't transport it because you don't have a pickup truck, or at least that's my problem. So I'm definitely excited for the Cybertrucks. I look forward to eventually one day getting my hands on them, right? But speaking on of Cybertrucks, a couple of days ago I highlighted how, yeah, there was this page for the Cybertruck that was created back in July 2023, but just a couple of days ago it was actually recently affiliated and verified with Tesla. And interestingly enough, when I first pointed this out, the page had about 4,000 followers. Now it's already around 61,000 followers. So that's just kind of like an alternative data point right there, just showing you that there is a lot of interest for the Cybertrucks. I mean, people are just following this brand new page that has like 2 posts that just recently posted just 2 days ago. So pretty cool. But let's actually look into something more serious, which is going to be the fundamentals. We're just 1 week away approximately, right? Tomorrow will mark officially 1 week from the earnings from Tesla. Now, one of the things I've said in not only to the Push and Profit private group, I believe I also said this in my free weekly market pulse insights, which is, if you guys don't know, I have a link in the description where if you guys want access, every single Sunday I send out an email talking about what's going on in the markets. And I said how we're getting a new wave of data, and that new wave of data is earnings season. And this earnings season is going to be very telling, as we've seen a lot of revisions upwards, and that's a bit concerning because that kind of sets ourselves up for disappointment with the markets. And so if a lot of these stocks don't actually hit on their earnings, well, then we could see things coming down. So of course we're going to want to pay attention to the wave of data. It looks like banks are somewhat looking confident. We'll definitely have to see what Wells Fargo, Citibank, JP Morgan, BlackRock, PNC, what they all say. So that's going to be interesting. We usually see banks pretty much kick off the earnings season, but we already got a few companies like Pepsi, which, interesting enough, Pepsi actually mentioned that they're seeing inflation on their end cool off a bit, so that's pretty exciting. But again, we also have a few other notable companies, Delta, Domino's. I'm sure you guys are familiar with these. But I say that the earnings for Tesla is going to be the big driver because, yeah, you could look at the economic data, you could look at the technicals like we're about to do, looking at the charts. But at the end of the day, one of the main reasons why we see inflows and outflows of capital is because we see market participants wanting a return on their investments. And so seeing how Tesla actually performs for the third quarter is going to be interesting. Now, you guys could comment in the comment section below what are your thoughts for Tesla. But we also have to understand that earnings have somewhat of a lot of nuance to them, where it's not only just the figures that we get, but also what we hear from the forward guidance. Now, last earnings call, we didn't get too much of a good forward guidance from Elon Musk, and I actually expect that he is going to be on this earnings call. In previous earnings, I believe last year, he mentioned that he won't be on them any longer unless he absolutely needs to. But being that we no longer have the CFO, I believe it was Kirkhorn who left Tesla, so I have a strong belief that Elon will be on the call. And so it's going to be interesting if we get any updates on this Cybertruck. That's going to be the huge catalyst. And also see if we have any more updates on Optimus. See, last time, if you guys remember the earnings call for Tesla, we were a bit disappointed where we heard that, I don't know, there was like maybe 6 robots of the Optimus actually built, and how it was actually hard or difficult to source some materials. So hopefully we do get an update on that. We want to see, are they still investing to research and development to really go into robotics. So that's going to be something interesting, and that's going to be the main driver for Tesla. You could have people that only look at the squiggly lines or the charts, but at the end of the day, this is going to be the huge move up, right? Or the huge move down for Tesla. In fact, last time we had earnings, that disappointing earnings is what contributed to Tesla capitulating. And then eventually we found an area where we started bouncing up. And now we're moving upwards. Now, quickly, one thing that we want to note is that we do see this wick over here on this candle, showing that there's some rejection, that sellers did step in. And that's also probably because around this area is pretty close to this descending trend line, where we've seen Tesla get rejected a multitude of different times in the past by the descending trend line. And so that's going to be an area that's going to be a little bit challenging for Tesla to go up. Again, there is less volume relative to price, so just any good news could actually push us up very well for Tesla. In fact, I actually see around this like 270, mid 270 levels is where we could expect to see somewhat of a resistance. But doesn't mean that Tesla could just touch this area and then fall down. Of course, if we have good earnings in 8 days, that's great for Tesla. We could finally break into an uptrend for Tesla. Though, one of the things we have to understand is that, just from my perspective and looking at things from an economic standpoint, unless the earnings are so great, I don't necessarily believe that we're going to be starting to head into all new territory of getting closer to new highs. I think we're still far into that. I believe that in 2024, towards the second half of the year, that's when things are going to start looking good, as we're going to have monetary tightening kind of starting to actually loosen up. And that's going to be where you're really going to want to have cash aside, or at least that's when I'm going to want to have cash aside to go ahead and plow into a lot of the ETFs I invest in long term, but as well as Tesla. For those of you guys that don't know, I have been investing in Tesla since 2017. And I don't say that to sound kind of braggadocious, like, oh yeah, I was a very early investor, which I actually wasn't. I mean, the real people are winning are the people all the way back here, right? You know, I'm just somewhere over here, or actually somewhere over here. But one of the things that I'm really just bullish because of what we're seeing with the trends with EV. I think that EVs are going to continue to dominate, and I think that they're going to continue to grow in their market share. But we also know that right now it's still challenging for Tesla, and I don't necessarily believe things are going to be good, but that doesn't mean I'm a bear long term, and I just want to clarify that. Now, one thing we also want to see is that, okay, let's actually go back to a daily time frame. We see that there is a lot of volume relative to price right around over here. So if Tesla does happen to get rejected, well, this is going to be the area we want to watch, right? Because we've seen it be an area where there's consolidation, as that's an area where there's a lot of trading, a lot of exchanging at those prices. So there's a lot of buying and selling here. And so if Tesla does happen to get rejected and fall down, well, we're going to want to see, does Tesla break below it? Because as we saw in the past, when Tesla did break below this area of high volume relative to price, we saw it quickly fall down very hard. And that's going to be I mean, if you're a long-term investor, great, because you have another opportunity to average in at a lower price. I know a lot of investors are salivating, hoping that Tesla actually goes lower just because they're that bullish on Tesla in the future, myself included. But you know, if it does fall down, yeah, I'll provide some great opportunities for shorts. I did have some levels mapped out. I think I deleted it before the video, but I think I'll just keep that exclusively for the Push and Profit private group. Just talking about this range that we saw Tesla in. Yeah, I already deleted it, so I'll just keep that exclusively for them. So they already know it was shared in the private chat. But with that said, let me know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on Tesla going into the earnings? And your thoughts on Tesla in the long term, right? I know some people love trading Tesla in the short term, but I also believe that a lot of people that watch my channel are also in it for the long term. So you guys let me know down below. And with that said, I'll see you guys on this next video right over here. Take care, guys.